Hey, I can do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day, all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day, all day, all day. I can do this all day, all day. I can do this all day, all day, every day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day. I can do this all day. I can do this all day, all day, every day. Backwood after backwood, OG hit me up the back end, yeah, the back.
What's up, everybody? You know me, it's Jay Free, and you are tuned into the Check My Resume podcast, where we follow some of the career journeys of some of the most impactful people that I admire, and I really like to tell their story on how they got to where they are currently. Because a lot of times that can get lost in translation when we look at their current successes. We don't necessarily consider their past. And so I want to dial in and kind of, focus in on that to show, the ups and downs, the different trials, the tribulations, the sweat equity, the blood, the sweat, the tears that's placed into getting your career to a point of where it is now. Not everybody takes the elevator. A lot of people take the stairs. And so we want to, kind of speak to each step that they had to get to where they are now. And as you all know, in the age that we're in now, everything is opinion based, right? People aren't talking facts and data. And that's what we talk here. We talk facts. We don't deal in the opinionated world, the more trivial things. If you come here to argue, you come to the wrong place because you're arguing with the facts. And so for me, I like to focus in on that and really give people their flowers and just allow people to peek behind the curtains, because a lot of people can be critical. And, in this age of cancellation, in this age of exposure, a lot of times just giving props and saying, you know what, you did your thing is a lost art and something that isn't out there per se. And so in terms of Check My Resume, that's what we do. And that's what we focus on. And so for this very first episode, this one is special for me. And I say that because if you know me, first and foremost, I am a graduate of Jackson State University. Proud alumni. We can have a paperwork party. I can show you my degree. Graduated with a degree in business management. But anyways, I'm going to cheer for JSU no matter what. It could be the academic side of things. It could be the bowling team, women's volleyball, women's basketball, men's basketball, and of course, football. If you know anything about Jackson State football, you know what it means to the city of Jackson. You know historically what it means to the state of Mississippi, to the South, to the SWAC, to the nation. We don't have to go through that. However, when we talk about Jackson State football, to be the head football coach requires thick skin. It requires a level of cockiness and arrogance that maybe you show, maybe you don't show. But there's a lot of requirements and there's a lot of expectations that comes with sitting in that seat. And the individual that is currently sitting in that seat played at Jackson State. So he knows the expectations, and he knew the expectations before he accepted the job. And not only that, he had to follow up an enigma. He had to follow up somebody that, man, is one of the all-time greats, one of the most well-known sports figures to ever play the game of football and baseball. But we'll jump into that. But this individual is special. It's very special, man. And I've just kind of from the sideline been watching everything that he's done, how strategic it's been, how cerebral it's been, and the execution has been flawless up to this point. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about none other than Mr. T.C. Taylor, the 22nd head football coach at the I Love Jackson State University. So you see that smile. A lot of times when you see TC, you see that. But behind that smile is a madman, is a technician, is somebody that is just infatuated with success, with winning, with JSU, with the culture and everything that embodies. He wears that. He wears it proud, and he doesn't shy away from any of the smoke, as people like to say. And that's what we like about TC Taylor. And so we'll dive into, who TC Taylor is. But one of the main reasons why I do this, especially this particular episode, because if we keeping it real, we keeping it 1,000, right? I sit in the stands at some of the games that I attend. I live in Texas now, so I can't get to every game. So I know how some of y'all talk. And I know, 1 minute is bad play calling, or the coach didn't do this, or the coach didn't do that. But when we hanging 40 plus on people, it gets real silent, right? And so to all the couch coaches, the computer coordinators, the folks in the stands that swear they can be doing a better job than what this man is doing, sit back and just enjoy. Is every call going to be 100% on point? No. But is every call in your life 100% on point? No. And so sometimes, and this isn't just to Jackson State. This could be at any university, anybody who's sitting in a seat where there's a lot of attention there. And the coaches, don't get me wrong, they understand what comes with this. But there can be this unfair expectation. People have these expectations that they place on their favorite athletes, their favorite teams, their favorite coaches that they don't have for themselves. How can you expect your favorite coach, your favorite players, your favorite team to be perfect, and you don't demand the same from yourself? And so if you do demand that from yourself, okay, maybe you can have that expectation, but to a certain point. And then people say, oh, well, they make all the money, and I don't want to hear that. I don't count people's pockets. That's not my responsibility. I'm not saying to not be critical of the coach when things are clearly not going well, but you don't think they know that? If they're not making adjustments, yeah, because I think that continues to assist with helping that coach ascend to even greater heights. However, just manage your expectations. That's all I would say. So when we talk about TC, we can't talk about him in football without talking about him, the player. And shout out to the 1400 Club. I jacked this from y'all. I saw this online, but this is the only thing I can find from TC from his early days at JSU, man. All that is like in the archives somewhere. So I had to find this photo. But before TC began playing at Jackson State, he was a, all-world high school player, played quarterback. That's what he played. That's what he was recruited to play at Jackson State University. Well, when he got here, he redshirted his freshman year, and then ultimately began to, make his mark as a QB at Jackson State. And so the first 2 years, he kind of sat behind some people and ultimately got his shot. Well, that was somewhat short-lived, and that they decided to go with the backup quarterback over TC in that position. And so with TC, in today's age, he probably would have sat out and hopped in the portal. But even at that time, he could have decided to transfer. I'm pretty sure he maintained a lot of relationships with the people that were recruiting him from other schools. And so what did TC say? Well, all right, I'm not going to be on the field as a quarterback. Where else can I be effective? So what does TC do? He transitions to wide receiver, finishes the junior year strong, which set up a even stronger senior year, where, as you can see, 84 receptions. And that's still an active record at Jackson State. 1,234 yards, 11 touchdowns. And they say, you know, in terms of recruiting receivers, TC's very tough because he played the role and he did it at a high level. And he played with pros. He played with Sylvester Morris, who got drafted in the first round by the Kansas City Chiefs, I think in the 2000 or the 2001 NFL draft. And so he's played it at a high level. He's seen it played at a high level as well. Some additional accolades from TC during his time as a receiver and player at Jackson State. Named to the Division I, 2A, third team All-American team, first team Black College All-American honors, runner-up for the Connerly Trophy. And if you know about this in Mississippi, it's handed out to the best football player, college football player in the state of Mississippi. So that's including Jackson State, Alcorn Valley, Delta State, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, Ole Miss, all the college programs. The top player from that year is selected. And so he finished runner-up to a guy that I think some of you know. His name's Eli Manning. And so TC finished second there, you know. So no bones to pick, really, although we thought he could have won it and should have. But that's neither here nor there. But TC also has his degree from Jackson State University, which is important to point out as well. And so I wanted to talk about TC, the player, because in order to talk about how effective he is as a coach, we had to talk about this piece. Because a lot of times, you know, how these younger guys are, they're like, all right, well, you know, if you didn't play, what can you really tell me? And so when you played, but not only did you play, you're coaching at the institution with which you played, it's kind of difficult to argue about anything with this particular person, right? So, man, phenomenal college career, still has standing records at Jackson State, one of the all-time greats to ever put on the pads and do his thing on the football field. And so before we jump into TC the coach, we're going to pay a few bills, but looking forward to proceeding on this episode of Check My Resume. Today's episode of Check My Resume is brought to you by Articulate Your Value. Visit the company's website at www.ayvnow.com. As you can see, this company offers a suite of career services and solutions and workforce development support. This extends to professional resume writing, career coaching, professional branding, and outplacement services for the larger organizations. Additionally, the company has products such as its Resume Builder Workbook and templates that can be bought through the website to build your own resume. The company is currently offering free 15-minute consultations scheduled through the website. All right, we are back. As stated, this episode is being brought to you by Articulate Your Value. Definitely check out the company and their service offerings. That is my company, shameless plug. But we do a lot of great things, which, you know, the name of the podcast is Check My Resume, because that's what I do for a living. I put resumes together. And so definitely check the company out if you're in need of any of the service offerings or the products that we offer. Back to the man of the hour, Coach TC Taylor. So in order to talk about where TC is now in terms of being the head coach at Jackson State University, we got to talk about how things started. And so TC began his coaching career at Coahoma Community College, which is in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Coached on the JUCO level for about 6 years. And I'm pretty sure got a lot of great experience that laid the foundation for the entirety of his coaching career. And so after, you know, being at Coahoma for 6 years, he then went to Texas Southern, where he coached under Dale Asbury at Texas Southern for a single season. Got him back in the SWAC, right, where the roots are, where Jackson State plays as well. I'm pretty sure that was kind of interesting, being at TSU. Although they didn't have a lot of success that year, just being able to go back, you play against Jackson State, you see some familiar foes. But then beyond that, the good thing that I noticed, and the thing that I noticed about TC is that he's a relationships guy. Like, he develops relationships with people. So even from being at Kahoma and then, going to Texas Southern, I know he, is getting cars. He's, saving numbers in his phone. He has the Rolodex and he's building it up. Although technology kind of changed from 2005 to now. But when you hear TC talk, he talks about relationships, and not just with coaches, but with players as well. And so he was at TSU for a single season, served as the receivers coach and the recruiting coordinator. So got his feet wet there. And I'm pretty sure on the recruiting side, began to see what his methods would be, when he became the head man, what his expectations would be in terms of recruiting talent, and then also coaches to be on his staff. And so from Texas Southern, he then went to NCCU, or North Carolina Central University, where he served as the offensive coordinator and also the QB coach under Jerry Mack, who is now at Kennesaw State. And man, this is when TC's career really began to take off, began to develop a lot of the talents there in terms of the QBs, was instrumental in North Carolina Central winning the M.I.C multiple times, instrumental in NCCU reaching the Celebration Bowl. And so TC has the success. He's always been a winner, even from his time at Jackson State, his time in high school in Pike County. And so that didn't change. But now you begin to get the success, not as a player, but as a coach. And so, working under Jerry Mack and, getting that experience from him was a pivotal point in TC's career. And I'm pretty sure Jerry would have snagged TC and brought him to Kennesaw State if he could. However, TC has bigger fish to fry. He said, I love Jackson State. And who knows? Maybe we'll play Kennesaw State at some point in the near future. But TC spent 4 years at North Carolina Central, and then eventually got that call from A.D. Robinson about coming back to Jackson State. And so TC came back to Jackson State in 2019. He started off as a receivers coach, and eventually we get one of the more well-known athletes in the history of professional sports that comes to Jackson State during that COVID, right prior to that COVID year, and primetime Deion Sanders. And so Coach Taylor's there kind of, in the seat, getting ready to make his move because he was hired in under Coach Hendricks, but he was already there before Deion got there, he and Coach Obo. Now, they were retained on the staff, and I'm pretty sure were instrumental in showing Coach Sanders the ropes. Well, while under Coach Sanders, TC was the receivers coach, which that's a given, right? Because he played that position at Jackson State, and he knows what that meant. But then also was the OC at one point under Deion. And so, you get all this experience, and now you get to learn about recruiting on another level, especially as we begin to usher in the NIL. We begin to usher in the digital age of marketing and promotion. And so even, when you look at what TC is doing now, you can see fingerprints of Coach Sanders and the things that he did. You obviously can see the fingerprints of a Jerry Mack. and I'm pretty sure Dale Asbury and some of the coaches that he coached under at Kahoma, And so when we get to talking about coaching trees, you can't say that TC comes under one coaching tree. Because if you're going to mention coaching trees at all, you got to mention them all, right? Where he learned to become a coach. And so you got to give the Jerry Macks their credit, right, for bringing a young TC on to the staff and then giving him that level of responsibility. You got to give props to a Coach Asbury at Texas Southern who gave TC his first shot at a Division I, 2A job. And then obviously there's Dion, right? And the tools that he was able to pick up in terms of, I would say, running the program like a pro team. Those are some of the things that you pick up along the way. But either way, if you're doing the math, what you can see right now is that TC is now in 2025 a 20-year tenured coach on the junior college level, on the Division I level. So again, as I stated, just as a coach alone, this man has seen more football than 99.9999999% with a hyphen over the final 9% of the population. So this man knows football. So please don't question that. If you're questioning that, I really gotta question you, right? But yeah, man, a phenomenal career up to this point. So, what you can see is, along each step, like I said, he's probably picked up a lot of different things, developed a lot of great relationships, and then just has a firm idea of what he wants his program to look like. And so after the Celebration Bowl in 2023, he then gets the keys to the car, to the building, to the university. He becomes the head coach at the I Love Jackson State University as Coach Prime moves on. And so, man, what did that look like? What does being the man look like at Jackson State at that point? Well, first and foremost, there's the national notoriety that's already at the university because we had an enigma sitting in the seat, the 21st head coach. 22nd, Coach Taylor's following that. So just imagine the pressure in following that. But then also you're inheriting a program that historically has been one of the better HBCU programs in the nation. If we're talking the SWAC, you got your holy trilogy. If we being real about it, it's Grambling, Southern, and Jackson State. Southern and Jackson State on the same tier. Grambling has all those championships, right? And so with those programs, especially Southern and Jackson State, we have our fan base. We're like the Yankees and the Dodgers, or the Lakers and the Celtics. When we're winning, our fan bases travel, and that can lead to a lot of positive revenue implications across the SWAC. God forbid both are winning, right? But I say that to kind of show the level that Jackson State is on and the expectations that comes with that position. But compile that with the fact that a Dion was there. Now, what does that do? Because everybody's looking. And they're saying, Dion made the program. Not realizing all the championships we had prior to Dion. Not realizing the 4 Hall of Famers, a Robert Brazil, a Sweetness. Are you serious? like, let's be real about it. So it may be that he made Jackson State to you because you didn't know about Jackson State. And that's fine because additional attention was brought there. But you can't You can't come into a situation that already has a strong brand and say that you had to build it from scratch. Not saying that that's what was said, but that is kind of a narrative that's out there. No, Jackson State has always been a strong brand. And I give props to the fans and to the people because a lot of things have to be manifested. And the Jackson State fans, man, we folks know how we are, and I know how we are, and I know why people dislike us, because when we're winning, even when we're not winning, you're going to know about it. And it's like the same with the Southern. It's the same thing. Like, we are going to gloat to the point where you are going to hate us. So that time frame when Deion came back brought us back to the glory days of being in that championship seat. But it brought a different level of hate, of disdain for Jackson State. And so if you're TC, now you're, in addition to just already what was there in terms of the hate for Jackson State program, now you compile that with having had one of the more well-known sports figures ever to be at the university. And so now that's heightened. People expecting you to fall off. They're expecting a lot of different things. But before we dive into that, I want to first talk about what being the man, what being a head coach entails, because a lot of people don't necessarily speak to that. They think everything is just X's and O's. They think everything is what happens on Saturday. But the game is won throughout the course of the week. They'll tell you the game is won in January even. And so when you're the man, when you're the woman, whoever you are, when you're at a job, when you're a business owner, there's a lot of different responsibilities that comes with that. And if you are going to be the CEO of a large corporation, the eyes are going to always be on you, right? I'm just using that as an example. Not saying that Jackson State football is a large corporation, but there's eyes on you. There's expectations. There's people that even internally want to hate on you. They'll say it when you're losing, and they'll be quiet as crickets when you're winning. But that's there. And so you have to understand that. And so when we talk about being a head football coach, and I'm pretty sure I'm leaving a laundry list of things off, but there's personnel management from your coaches to your players to the training staff to the administrators to the folks that cook for the football team, to the folks that assist with traveling. You also have to manage your relationships with your athletic director and his team. You have to be in tune with the president at the university. There's just a lot that comes from a personnel standpoint that you have to be on top of. There's also your budget. You got to manage a budget in terms of your football program. People got to get paid, right? So you got that part of it too. And included in that budget is going to be travel. There's going to be health insurance. There's going to be different services that you have to provide to the football team. There's a lot of different things to manage. You got to keep the lights on. You got to make sure the locker room stays clean. You got to make sure the food is purchased. You got to make sure the team has what they need when they go on the road. You got to have lodging accommodations. There's a lot of different things that comes with just the budget and managing that on an annual basis. But I can tell you what helps it for sure is winning, because that pot gets a little bit wider the more you can win. There's also the recruiting aspects of it, which TC is damn good at. He and his right-hand man, Coach O, right? And we'll dive into that a little bit deeper later on. And now you got the NIL. And it's been around for some time now. But this is something else you have to consider, because in order to compete, you got to have opportunities. And by opportunities, I mean you got to be able to, pay a little something to your student athletes to play at your university. And we have a strong collective. We got KC 1400. We got, the Tiger Fund. We got JSU by 40. We got a lot of different things too that our athletic director is at the forefront of, where we're able to take care of our student athletes. But that's another part of it, right? And then where would we be without a compliant program? We wouldn't be. So you have to make sure that you're on top of things from a compliance perspective, whether that be grades, whether that be through the NCAA clearinghouse, you name it. You have to be on point with those things also. Your facilities, that goes without saying. And I'll say Jackson State has some of the best facilities in the conference. Our locker room, not a locker room, but yeah, our locker rooms there now on campus are top notch. One of the things that Coach Sanders was able to do was get the field redone. So the practice field, is top notch as well. And so they've done a really good job of taking care of that. And so when the student athletes are over at the facility, it's kind of a home away from home. And so it's not somewhere that you're rushing to get away from. You could chill out in the lounge, you could play games, you could do all these different things to continue to build that camaraderie amongst your team. So the facilities is another piece that, they have to make sure that they upkeep. There's also community engagement. You got to get out in the community. You got to show that you care. You want these people at your game, right? And these are the people that patronize your games, right? They come, they spend their hard-earned dollars on tickets, on season tickets. And, the football team has done a really good job, or the program has done a really good job with connecting with the community. They host a women's clinic in terms of football and talk about the different areas where women can get involved. They also facilitate a summer camp, a summer football camp for kids in the community. And I think that they partner with JPD this past year to host that. And so it's giving the kids in Jackson something to do, because to those kids, we are their NFL team. The Jackson State Tigers are their NFL football team. And so to be able to go out there and see some of the players like last year, they get to run around with an Irv Mulligan. They get to run around with a Robert McDaniel. They get to run around with a Jeremiah Williams, and so you get to see some of your heroes, some of the people that you look up to. And, that's some of the things that TC is able to do as well to really have an impact in the community of Jackson, Mississippi. There's fundraising and revenue generation. You gotta be a fundraiser to be a coach. Not saying that that's your sole responsibility, but you have to be at the forefront of being able to raise funds for your program, because sometimes that budget may not get it. So then how else are we going to generate some sort of income to sustain the program and keep it at the level that we want, right? And so fundraising is a huge part of that, and TC does a really good job at that. We talked about TC cultivating relationships. And, this is something too, like when I heard him initially talk about recruiting Jacobian Morgan, our quarterback, he had developed the relationship with Jacobian back in 2019 and maintained that relationship. So Jacobian went to Syracuse and ended up coming back. That's because the relationship never soured. And he never took it personal that he decided to go to Syracuse, and being from Canton, obviously Jacobian knows about Jackson State. But, with TC maintaining that relationship and keeping good footing there, you're able to get this guy back, and he's instrumental in the team's success last year. When we talk about travel, we included that in speaking about the budget. We got to talk about safety, making sure that these guys are protected. These parents are bringing their kids to Jackson State. And, in terms of when they drop them off, they're handing things over to the coaches, and to the adults that are in place there to make sure that their kids are okay. And so that's a huge part of what they have to do, in terms of, checking in on those guys and making sure that everybody is good. TC often says, I have an open door. You can come talk to me about whatever it is. And so those are the things that you don't see on Saturday. You don't see, the conversations, the tough conversations, the life conversations that are happening, where TC and his coaching staff are helping turn these young boys to men and these young girls to women, because we have a female on our team too, right? We have different females around the program. And, TC prides himself on being open to being able to support the student athletes in whatever way that he can. Obviously, we talked about the relationship with administration and everything that entails. And last but not least, win, baby, win. You got to get the dubs, right? But you don't get to that point if all the things above this are not on point. Everything has to be aligned. Everybody has to have a championship mentality. Everybody. You can't have one doubter in the room. Everybody has to believe. And so making sure that all those things are aligned, making sure that you're doing everything to the best of your ability, that falls on the head coach. And TC has done a tremendous job in making sure that those things are on point and continue to flow in the proper direction for the years to come. We're going to take a quick pause for the calls right there and pay some more bills. But when we get back, we're going to dive into the actual team. We're going to talk about the success of the team as well. What's good, everybody? If you are looking to purchase the crowns that you've seen me rocking in these episodes, and guess what? You can purchase them through our website. You just saw the midnight and the money green. We also got the hunter green and the butter with the white accent, one of my personal favorites. For all my folks that love red, guess what? Got you covered. We got the all red with the navy blue check, the gray accent. We also got the JSU blue, gray check. W.C. Gordon red. All my JSU people know what time it is. And then finally, we got the water blue with the green money check and the white accent. You know what to do. Hit the link. Go get yours. All right. So when we talk about the culture at Jackson State, which, by the way, I got the JSU blue, W.C. Gordon red joint on today. Like I said, you from Jackson State, you know what it is with that. But y'all can definitely get the crowns as well if you want to rock that. Because sometimes you got to let people know. Check my resume. Because a lot of times folks just talking and they talking. I'm just handing out papers. I'm going to give you a link to where you can Google me, right? Before I argue with anybody. Lock yourself in the closet and argue with yourself. That's what I say. But anyways, the culture. Yes, that's a second E because that's what we do at the I Love Jackson State University. But when we talk about Jackson State, it is truly JSU versus everybody. I've been out before with a small JSU logo on. And I can remember being at a Dallas Wings game, me and my lady, and we chilling in the suite, get some food, and some folks from different universities come up and they are talking cash money. I've said nothing, but they come up to me and it is, man, they giving it to me. But of course, I'm gonna give it back because we are JSU and that's, how we operate. And I have to let people know what time it is. And we get historical with it. But I can tell you it makes it a whole lot easier, especially you going through the airport and, you doing your thing. And it's different reasons. But again, I know how JSU fans are. So trust me, I'm not saying we're the victim in this, but I don't bother people. But if people come up to me, so then I got to get in that mode, and really lay down the law on what it is with us at JSU. But anyways, it's truly us versus everybody, man. And so, when you talk about the culture, you got to have buy-in from top to bottom, and that begins with your coaching staff. And so the first year that Coach Taylor was here, he began to bring people in that assisted with laying the foundation for what he wanted his version of Jackson State football to look like. Well, a lot of those coaches are no longer here, but you'll never hear TC say a bad thing about them. A lot of them went on to take Power 5 jobs or went to different opportunities after year one. But I think one of the main things that TC took from that is, okay, we got the foundation laid. I know what I want from my team. I know what type of energy I want to have around my team, right? And as Coach TC began to assemble this staff, of course, you know, he has his right-hand man, Coach O, right there. And, you know, you can't understate or overstate how much impact Coach O has on the program and how his support for TC propels him to be the best version of himself. When you got somebody like Coach O on your side and like really holding you down, there's a lot of things that you can just kind of relinquish. You know, Coach O is one of the better recruiters in the country. I've heard him say, you know, JSU isn't an option. It's the only option, and meant it, right? And that's how they go about recruiting, which it doesn't surprise me or shock me when I see the caliber of players that come to JSU. You know, we could go down the line, right? You got Coach Quinn, the mad scientist as a defensive coordinator. Coach Manny used to play in the NFL, our offensive line coach, and run game coordinator. Coach Gallen, the running backs coach. Coach Marshall, man, who last year with all the receivers down, man, was able to have that thing rolling like a well-oiled machine, you know, and keep things flowing. You got Coach Rip Kirk, one of the kind of behind the scenes guys that really kind of help schematically with what's going on. You had Coach Ord, the linebackers coach, Coach Callie James, who went on to Western Kentucky, but was a phenomenal coach in getting the best out of those guys. You got Coach Mario, who's been there for a while, who is engulfed in this JSU culture. And then, man, you got my guy, Javancy Jones, man. When I say TC wanted the energy, he knew where to go get it. And not only did Coach Jones come in and bring that energy, just watch him on the sideline, man. You know, he's doing that. And a lot of times people think it's just fun and games, but nah, man, this is one of the best special teams coordinators in the country, one of the best linebacker coaches in the country. So don't let the dancing or the getting everybody hyped up fool you. That's gonna rock you to sleep. And then you'll find that, man, these folks then ran a touchdown back on us. So they didn't block the punt. Or these linebackers out here laying that wood. That's Coach Jones say. But man, phenomenal staff. Obviously, you see the analysts, the folks that are, you know, over football operations. Coach Morton used to be the running back coach, director of recruiting, does a phenomenal job. Coach Watson as well. And so, you know, a lot of these things contribute to the success of the program. And beyond that, it's just a relatability factor with Coach Taylor, right? When you look at them before the game, there's a clip out there with KC 1400 media. Before the game, man, the soundtrack, one, they got a DJ in the locker room. Two, he's playing that Chief Keef Finito. And I'm like, all right, I want to see how this gonna rock. Man, when I say them guys got too hype up in there, I was ready to go through and blow New Jersey up, you know? But it's that relatability, man, that comes with TC that I just know, like, the players, they buy into him. They buy into Coach O. They buy into the coaching staff, and they believe in these guys, you know? And so that's one of the things that keeps him head and shoulders above a lot of his peers, not only just in the SWAC or the M.I.C, but in the country in general. And so, you know, we are grateful that we have him, and he has that sort of impact to where these guys want to come and play for him. Coach Taylor has some interesting quotes, you know, throughout the course of his career, his head coaching career thus far. And one that he said is, we don't believe in pressure, we believe in preparation. And that really hit, man. That stuck with me because, you know, a lot of times when you're walking into a room or you're walking into a situation, you could feel like a level of pressure. And a lot of times that comes with not being prepared. Proper preparation prevents poor performance, right? You got the 5 Ps. But if you take that to heart, you'll find that pressure is really just little nerves, little jittery, little butterflies. But if it becomes anxiety, it's because you're not prepared. But if you're prepared, as soon as after the coin toss and the ball is kicked off, the nerves are gone. And so there's a lot to be taken from that, not just from a football perspective, but from a life perspective. One of my favorites is we heard all the noise after the Texas Southern game this year. We had just come off a atrocious loss to Grambling. And everybody was talking. Oh, man, get rid of them, man. This player shouldn't be doing this. And what is the coaching? And we got all the talent, but the coach. Well, first of all, as a coach, you had to recruit the talent. So that's part of coaching. But secondly, you have those blemishes sometimes, and you need that to get over the hump. Well, guess what? We didn't lose another game after we lost to Grambling. And oh, by the way, the game after this comment, the game where this comment was provided in the post-game presser was after we beat Texas Southern 43-14. And so, man, not only did we get up and get back to business, man, business was handled for the rest of the season. And then lastly, stand by. That was after when Coach Prime left, that was the message on Twitter. And we began to see the recruits come in. And at that point, I knew we were going to be more than okay. We were going to be fine. And so when we talk about recruiting, we just kind of highlighted that 2023 class, 2024, Jackson State was consistently one of the top two recruiting teams in FCS. And so again, that can be attested to Coach O, Coach TC, and the coaching staff. And so immediately they had their vision of how they were going to sell Jackson State and what they were going to do to push the line. Because Coach O mentioned, after that Celebration Bowl in after the 2022 season, Coach Prime and his folks got in that sprinter. Coach TC and Coach O got back on the bus with the team. The sprinter went one direction, the bus went the other. And then, oh, by the way, when they got there, a lot of the players hopped in the portal. All of the coaching staff, for the most part, was gone. The trainers, gone. I think if they could have took parts of the locker room, it would have been gone too. So, there's just a lot that had to happen in terms of reestablishing the foundation and continuing to build on this winning tradition that we already had in place. But now the expectation is even higher because you're coming off of 2 consecutive SWAC championships and 2 consecutive Celebration Bowl appearances, which we did not win under Deion Sanders. And so you begin to hit the trail recruiting and saying, hey, you got to reassure everybody, I got this. Trust me, I got this. And so a lot of those things were put into place by Coach TC and Coach O, in terms of building out that initial coaching staff, in terms of recruiting. And you got to think about the time frame where all of this occurred. Like all of this was occurring over the standpoint or the time frame of when the portal window closed that initial time. So you had to do a lot of this on the fly, right? And they were able to get that accomplished. So, one thing that we're going to do at JSU is recruit, and we're going to sell the institution. We're going to sell Jackson State. And a huge part of that, too, is Tiger Nation. Because, you post a JSU offer, we own you. We're gonna let you know this is the place to be. So another thing that's critical about being the head coach is putting butts in the seats, right? And at Jackson State, we have traditionally been at the top of attendance in FCS. Prior to Coach Sanders getting there, obviously it was inflated at that point because he has the fanfare that follows him. But at the core of it, right, we have a solid foundation, right, that we can expect to show up and show out. And so during the 2024 season, we'll just use that as our baseline. Jackson State averaged roughly over 27,000 fans. Number one in FCS, number one in the SWAC, number one in HBCU football, and it really wasn't even close, right? With I think Alabama State being second and Southern a close third there, but they were still almost, 9,000 fans behind us in terms of attendance. And so people like to say, all right, well, y'all can't pack out your own stadium. All right, the vet holds 50,000 people. So what are you talking about? One. But then two, if you look at our attendance, we were ahead of 60 FBS programs. 60. And you see some of the names on that list. And so we're tracking, right? We're middle of the pack as it pertains to FBS attendance. And we're an FCS school. But a lot of that has to do with the product that TC's able to put out on the field. If we're not winning, Jackson State fans will still show up to certain games, but consistently, it's not going to happen. And especially now being that the games come on TV, a lot of people are just going to stay home. But to still be able to put 27,000 in the stands, and sometimes I think we got to do a better job of our system accounting because I think it's a lot more than what they say a lot of times. But that's neither here nor there, right? But this is ultimately a great recruiting tool. Obviously, it provides that much needed revenue that the athletic department and Ashley Robinson is able to use to fund all athletic programs. But TC plays a huge part in that. So that attendance and putting a winning product on the field is instrumental in the success of not only JSU football, but Jackson State as a whole. And so let's dive into the year-over-year comparisons from the first year when TC got in the seat to this past season. And so I wanted to look at this from a couple of different angles. And so in terms of our graphic, we're approaching this more so from the standpoint of 2023 versus 2024. And as you can see, when we're looking at the offensive and defensive output, we're looking at SWAC games only. But we'll hop back over and talk about where we were overall and as that pertained to the country and our rankings and where we positioned and placed. But in 2023, 7-4 record. So solid, right? Coming off of a season or where we went to the Celebration Bowl, we won the SWAC, and we were all world. This was a letdown to most people. But I tailored my expectations because I'm like, all right, one, we got to get our team together. Two, TC got to get in the flow and rhythm of being a head coach. And so to go 7-4, sure, some people will say, all right, well, we could have been 9-2, right? We had a couple of games that were pretty close. We lost to Alcorn by like 4 points, 4 or 5 points. We lost to Alabama State by 4 or 5 points, right? But I also say there were some games that we won that were close that we could have lost. So I think 7-4 was an accurate depiction of who we were. If you look at the offense, we were at 25.3 points per game in conference play. Defense, solid, giving up 20.6 points per game. Well, you transition that to 2024. Obviously, the glaring differences are there. And that's going to be reflected in the record too. So you go from 7-4 to now you're 12-2. You win the SWAC East, you win the SWAC championship, you go to the Celebration Bowl, you do your thing, right? But what's the difference? One, TC is the offensive coordinator. And I can remember SWAC Media Day, Jay questioning TC saying, man, you think that's too much? You just talked about you had too much on your plate, him and Tiffany, right? And TC was like, well, that's what I do. And at that point in time, it's like, yeah, all right, we'll see. But what happens? We improve by 14 points per game. And I heard somebody talking about, man, in order to beat JSU by 40 or 40, you got to be averaging 40. What are you talking about? Like, look at the numbers. You go back and you look at our games in 2024, there was 50 plus on Lane, right? Which you would say, oh, that was D2. Well, 43 on Texas Southern, 45 on Alabama A&M, 42 on Southern, 48 on Alcorn at the end of the year. And so we eclipse 40 regularly or get close to it. 37 against Bethune, 35 against Fam. So the numbers don't lie. Again, you can look this information up yourself. I'm dealing with facts and data, right? 39.5 points per game. We improved by 2 touchdowns in conference play. And obviously that's good enough to be number one. Defense. We reduced our total defensive points per game by essentially over 4 points per game. So you go from 20.6 to 15.9 in your first. You go from fourth to first, sixth to first, 12-2 from 7-4. Huge difference. Coach Taylor said before the season, all right, if we could put up 33 points per game, I feel like we give ourselves a chance. So he already exceeded his expectations by a wide margin. We're talking 6 points in football. That's a whole touchdown. That's challenging, right? So we go above and beyond on that. Coach Quinn is dialing it up on the defensive side all year. Of course, we had our bumps, but nothing was fatal. You see what they call we-fence, right? So there were times when the defense struggled and the offense held it down. There was times when the offense struggled and the defense wasn't going, right? So you combine those things and you build, that becomes a championship team. So when we look at where we were within the FCS, let's talk about that. Scoring offense, right? When you look at all the games we played, this is including ULM, all the teams that we played out of conference, which Southern and Grambling in those 2 games would be factored into this because those were out of conference, which they will be conference games in 2025, except for the SWAC championship when we played Southern. But when we look at FCS in general, it's 129 teams. So when people get to saying or questioning if Coach Taylor is a good coach or not, was he the best of the worst, or just a bunch of craziness? Let's look at the data. Let's really look at the data, man. Scoring offense, 36 points per game, 36.4. Don't want to short them. That's good enough for 6th in the nation out of 129 teams. We talk about scoring defense, 17.14 points per game. That's 7th in the nation. The only other team that was higher than us within our conference was Alabama State. When we talk about things in their totality, as it pertains to the teams in the games that they played. But this is damn good. Damn good. You know, when you look at the year-over-year comparisons, and it's just setting up for even stronger 2025. And I've listened, because I'm an avid follower, first and foremost, avid follower and fan of the SWAC. So I'll go to everybody's YouTube and see what their coaches are saying. And initially, early on in the season, it was just like cats were kind of slow to give it up. But then when we started wrecking people, it was like, man, those guys were just good. They had some dudes, man. They were physical up front in the trenches. The skill players were good. They were exceptional, actually. And they just did their thing. I think, honestly, like it sent a lot of people back to the drawing board to say, all right, well, what are we going to do, to compete with that team? And so, 2025 will definitely be more challenging, I would say. But here's the thing. Excuse me. When you're Jackson State, everybody plays you like it's their Super Bowl anyway. So you already know what comes with being the champion. But then beyond that, man, these folks out there, TC and Coach O, Coach Quinn, Coach Jones, everybody else, they recruiting like we went 2-12 last year. So we know what to expect. We're not going to be the ones getting punched, they're saying. We're going to be the ones still doing the punching. So huge shout out in the year-over-year changes, right? Like I said, here on Check My Resume, we don't just look at trivial things. We're not talking about what we think. We're talking about what we know. You can go and look this data up. This is out here for you to go see yourself. If it's not fact-based and data-driven, I'm not talking it. And so that's why I'm able to look at this and look at the year-over-year improvements and say, man, phenomenal job. Hats off to this coaching staff. And I know, that greatness is ahead, especially if 2024 and 2023 are any indication of the work that this coaching staff can do and the potential that they can tap into. So 2024, man, phenomenal year. Jackson State gets a lot of accolades. You see that bottom left, Coach TC is holding up the East champion trophy after the Alabama State game. It's like, all right, kind of getting used to, like, all right, how I hoist this thing up, how I hoist this trophy up. And then, the top left, I believe it is for you, that's after the SWAC championship, and you got the streamers coming down. You're starting to get used to it, like, all right. And then the major photo, which they were kind of late on the confetti, as Coach said, is after the Celebration Bowl. You can see we mastered it, holding up the trophy at that particular point in time, man. But not only do you become the champions, you have a lot of postseason accolades. Irv Mulligan is the Offensive Player of the Year. You had offensive linemen that were named to first team all conference. Jacobian Morgan, second team all conference as the quarterback. We had defensive players named to those teams. Our special teams, Travis Terrell, G Baby, Matt Knoll, our long snapper. I saw his family at the game, and what he did last year was just phenomenal too. I don't want to mess his name up right now, but anyways, you get all those accolades. And then, oh, by the way, Coach Taylor is named Coach of the Year. Cody, Coach of the Year for the SWAC in 2024. Eddie Robinson, finalist, and then also named to the NCAA Football Rules Committee, man. So phenomenal year, for Coach Taylor and his team, as well as individually. And then, I learned that TC stands for a couple things now. Total Control is one of them. True Champion is another one. Tremendously consistent, man. This guy is getting the praise, and he deserves it all. And I can tell you, they're still hungry. They want more. Those pictures are from the celebration parade in Jackson. In Jackson, this was a great moment. It was raining. Man, thousands of people still came out to celebrate your Black football college national champions. And so to close things out, man, when we look at TC's resume, man, what do we have here? We have 20 years of coaching experience, right? Like I said, that's an awful lot. You got 3 SWAC championships, 2 under Coach Prime's regime, where he was an assistant, 1 that he can call his own, 3 M.I.C championships, 4 Celebration Bowl appearances, and finally got the monkey off his back with getting the win this year over South Carolina State. And so obviously that means we have a national championship, right? We have a title to show for that. SWAC Coach of the Year, which we just discussed. Overall record, 19-6 thus far. Phenomenal record. I think that's like a 83% winning percentage if you do the math. Top recruiter. Also coached the first female to play in an HBCU Division I football game. She's one of our kickers, stayed on the team. And so beyond that, he runs a compliant program. Just the overall, phenomenal dude who's done some great things and will continue to do more. And like I said, with Check My Resume, I like to cover the journey. I like to get into the nitty-gritty details of how these people got to where they are. And this is not to say that Coach Taylor's journey is over. It's just beginning in terms of his head football coaching career, especially with the things that are, in store at I Love Jackson State University. But a lot of times, like I said, what can get lost is what people have done And people don't necessarily consider that a lot of times because they get so caught up in what happens on Saturday that they don't know what happens behind the scenes. And so we wanted to shed a little light on that as it pertains to Coach Taylor, as it pertains to his staff and the things that they've been able to accomplish, not just this year, but the year previous or prior, where they were able to lay the foundation. And so, again, you've been tuned into Check My Resume. We'll bring some more exciting content. We're going to stick with Jackson State. I won't, spoil it just yet. But they won't all be on Jackson State. But we will stick with Jackson State for the next episode and talk about somebody that's the true engine for everything that's going. But again, it's been a pleasure. And until the next time, may the Lord watch between me and thee. We'll check back in with you on the next episode.